For this project, I used PROTOFACTOR Inc.'s Animal Variety Pack, which was free on the Unreal Store. It has a couple examples of just normal animals. Comes with animations, the mesh, the skeleton, the textures and materials. The only thing I added in this folder was a blend space for walking and running. Everything else I added is the AI and the animation blueprint. When I was going about this project, I was considering the best way that I could show off my ability to use Unreal's animation blueprints, Persona. And I decided instead of making the player character the wolf, that I could show off an NPC of the wolf moving around. So I took some basic AI, the behavior tree, and this fella will, if it can't see the player, it will follow its patrol path to the end. And then depending on whether the level designer chooses the patrol path should be looped or if it should be retraced. But then once it can see the player, it will immediately start chasing the player. And then when it's in melee range, it will attack the player using a bite animation. If it loses sight of the player, it starts searching. And part of what I did was blended together a search animation. So it had a couple of idle animations in it. One that's just breathing, and it had one where it looked around. I blended the look around with the walk animation to give it a search animation, where it'll turn its head side to side while it's walking and looking for the player. So it tries to search for the player 3 times, finding random locations near where it is. And once it's searched 3 times, it will stop searching and will howl to show that it can no longer find the player. Depending on what it's doing, it has different speeds at which it moves. When it's patrolling, it moves at 115. When it's chasing the player, it moves at 600. And then when it's searching, it moves at 135. And because it's connected to a blend space, when it's moving at these lower speeds, it will be using a walk animation. But when it moves at 600, it will be using a run animation. These are the Blackboard keys that are used throughout the behavior tree. Whether or not it's in melee range and should attack. And enum for whether it's chasing, searching, or patrolling. How long it should sit at a patrol point before moving on to the next one. Which direction it's following the patrol. Is it going from 0 to 1, or should it be going from 1 to 0? This is whether or not the path is looping, or whether it should be retracing. This keeps track of at what point in the patrol path is it at. Is it at point 0? Is it at point 4? It needs to know where it is and where it needs to go. This is whether or not the wolf's AI perception can see the player. For this project, only the AI's sight is turned on, none of its other senses are turned on. And then the target location is where the wolf is headed. The index tells where in the patrol path array it's going to be going, but this is the physical location in the world of where it's headed. So when he's patrolling, he'll find where he needs to go in his patrol path, he'll move to that location, and then he'll wait for a couple of seconds, depending on what the designer says to wait for. 0.5 seconds, 2 seconds, whatever they put in. And then, depending on how you set it up in the editor, he will automatically go from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 0. And then there's a choice of whether you loop his path to say 0 to 1 to 2 to 0 to 1, or if he'll retrace his path 0 to 1 to 2 to 1 to 0 to 1 to 2, which is a choice that the editor can make. When the wolf sees the player, his run speed switches and he will follow the player to the player's location. He will chase the player, and then if he's in the melee range that is set by the editor, he will do a melee attack animation. If he loses sight of the player while he's chasing, his enum chase status will be set to searching. And if he's searching, he will move to where the player was last seen. This activates the search animation that I have made in the animation blueprint. And this is his wait while he's looking around. He gets to the point, he waits 2 seconds before he moves to his next point. And he searches 3 times. He searches 3 times by finding a random location nearby, which right now is set to 300, though it can be increased and decreased as desired. He'll then move to that location and wait 2 seconds before doing it again. Once he's done it 3 times, his status will change to patrolling. This turns the searching animation off, and then he'll play a howl animation that signals that he's given up. And the way the wolf knows where it can go is by using a nav mesh bounce volume, which can be found in here. This guy here. Then use this box here, and you can see where it covers by hitting the P key on the keyboard. So these are the areas where the wolf can travel. The wolf control is what runs the behavior tree that allows the AI to work, and also stores the initial variables for the blackboard. So things like, is it retracing? Is it looping? Set the direction. By default, it goes 0 to 1 to 2 in a positive direction. And it sets the wait time. And then this activates his sight and what to do on the site. So when he sees the player, it'll set it as true. When he can't see the player, it'll set it as false, which is a component that's added up here and can be adjusted through these. And then this guy's animation blueprint. The event graph is mostly used to set variables that are then used in the anim graph. This case sets whatever speed he's moving at, which is then used in the blend space that I made between the walk and the run. And the reason I have a blend space for walking and running rather than an idle walk run is because he's got multiple idles, and I wanted them to be random, so I used a random sequence player, which has 2 of his idle animations in here. One that's an idle breathe and one that's an idle look around. So this one has a higher chance to play. His normal idle breathe has a higher chance to play than his idle look around. Because his idle look around animation is it's him looking left and right, followed by a breathe animation. But that's all in one animation. So this one has more chance to play and will play up to 5 times before it has to play a different animation. And this one will play a maximum of 1 at a time. So if he does an idle look around animation, the next animation will be an idle breathe. And this has a higher chance to play than this one does. This section sets whether or not he is searching, which is set by the behavior tree of whether or not he's in search mode or not. And then this sets whether or not he is attacking. In the anim graph, uses state machines, and then I put them into caches for ease of use so I can have a final that uses these pieces depending on what it needs to do. That then goes into the final, whatever pose it needs to be in the end. So the movement is the locomotion, and this is where his idles are. And then if he's faster than 0, if his speed is higher than 0, he will change to his walk-run blend space, which is set by the speed in the event graph. And then if his speed becomes 0, he will switch to his idles. If he's searching while walking, it blends his walk animation with the idle look around animation. And it blends it via his neck bone, so only his upper body here will be affected by the look around. That allows the rest of his body to walk while his head looks left and right. And then both of these are used in the final state machine, where if he's searching, then it will use the search cache. And if he's attacking, I decided to blend his walk or run animation with the wolf bite animation. And the reason I did this, bring it up here, a run bite. See, the run bite is mostly kind of an opening and closing of the jaw. It's very subtle, which is not what I wanted to show. His bite animation, on the other hand, moves right to left. It is a bit more dynamic and aggressive, which is closer to what I wanted to show off. So this allows him to move while he's biting. And then also, it's blended at the neck. Example. Check this. Let's make this 600. And that lets him bite while he's running. And then whichever pose is chosen in here is what is shown on screen. So our boy walks to follow his path. When he sees the player, he follows and he bites at ya. Then when he loses sight, searches around 3 times, and howls when he gives up, and returns his patrol. And it's pretty easy to just drag in a wolf, a patrol path. Yep. Move that there. Add another one. There. And add one more. There. Make it a wait time of 4 seconds. Then we have to go to this guy, and we just have to set which patrol path he wants. Let's tell him 2. And he'll follow the one we gave him. We could also give him that one. Now follow whichever path you gave him. So this section of the video just shows off the blueprints in the behavior tree, the tasks that let it do various things. So this sets the blackboard key of chase status. This changes the wolf speed. This is a service that I use inside of the behavior tree that sets the walk speed to whatever speed is designated here. This moves to whatever location the player is last seen. So find path point gets the next point in the patrol path array and sets it. This finds where the player currently is and gets a point randomly close to it, but not exactly where it is. This is used while it's searching to get a random location very close to where it is Since it doesn't know where the player is, it's going to try to look around where it currently is to find the player. So this one checks for what direction it's heading, which is to say, is it going from 0 to 1 to 2, or is it currently retracing? Is it going 2 to 1 to 0? So if it's positive, it's going 0, 1 to 2. If it's negative 1, then it's going 2, 1 to 0. Then it gets the next point, depending on whether it's retracing or not, and finishes. If the player is in melee range, so it tries to get how close these two are, and whether it's less than or equal to melee range, which is set in the editor. First it gets, is it trying to loop? So you get the blackboard keys, like, is it trying to loop? And if it is trying to loop, then it loops it, but if it's not trying to loop, it doesn't bother. This is how it goes about initiating the melee attack. So first it has to check, is the interface implemented as the way the combat is, where right now it just has a melee attack. As you see, the wolf factor does indeed implement the melee attack. And so it does implement it, so it goes through the rest of it. So it uses the interface that's there, and it'll only bother to use it if it implements it. So that prevents it from trying to use it when it can't use it. But so then it sends message, which will initiate it, and then it won't spam the melee attack. It'll have to wait at least 0.7 seconds before it tries another melee attack. This is used when it's retracing a path rather than looping. First it checks the direction, then it gets where it currently is. Decrements the index. I don't like this. See if I can. That looks a little nicer. And then this sets whether or not it should currently use the searching animation.